Our city has a new fire chief. He will be talking to us about the department and recruiting strategies. This and other important topics in this edition of Your Community. Welcome to this edition of Your Community. This is your host, Miriam Hernandez, for WSTV Cable 13, City of Winston-Salem. Today, we will hear from Wanda Allen Abraha from the Human Relations Department with information on fair housing and update of the Building Integrated Communities program. We also have our new fire chief, bringing us information on the fire department and recruitment strategies. And last but not least, information on the VITA program. Let's start with Wanda Allen Abraha from the Human Relations Department. Wanda, let's start out by explaining to us what is fair housing. What does fair housing even mean?
Fair housing actually refers to the Fair Housing Act, which is a federal law here in the United States that pertains to having equal and accessible housing for all persons, despite color, national origin, race, family status, gender, religion, or disability. So those 7 categories are considered protected classes of persons. And so if you fall into one of those 7 categories, you are protected by federal law to ensure that you're not discriminated against when you're trying to either rent or purchase housing.
Is fair housing an option?
Fair housing is not an option. It is the law. And it is not only our federal law, but it's also our local law. We have local ordinances here in Winston-Salem that our department, the Human Relations Department, enforces through the powers of the Human Relations Commission, which is our advisory board. So we are responsible for enforcing all fair housing law within the city limits of Winston-Salem, which means people can come in and file complaints if they feel like they have been discriminated against.
Now, there's a program called ARM Program Fair Housing Code. What is this?
The ARM program is our alternative residential mediation program. That is a little bit different from our fair housing program in that the ARM program specifically speaks to landlord-tenant complaints. So in other words, people who may have just ordinary problems with their landlord or even with the tenant can come to us for mediation. And a lot of those problems stem around security deposit issues, may stem around issues and complaints that involve pets or service animals, repairs, things like that. And so we have that free program here out at the Human Relations Department where we have 2 trained mediators on staff who will work with either a landlord or a tenant in an unbiased way to try to resolve those types of complaints and issues.
Now, what are those basic or common complaints that the Human Relations Department receives, probably on a daily basis?
Well, on a daily basis, we receive complaints that can center around landlord-tenant problems or fair housing problems. Typically with fair housing, most of our complaints are stemming from race-based complaints, could be stemming from national origin complaints, and also we've had quite a few over the past several years that pertain to disability. And so if someone feels like they're being treated unfairly or they're being given different terms or conditions for how they are able to live in their apartment or their house that they're renting, then we can certainly look into that. And even with purchasing, if someone feels like they are at a bank and perhaps the lending terms changed because of their particular situation, and they think the situation relates back to one of those 7 protected classes under the Fair Housing Act, then we investigate that as well to make sure that those terms and conditions aren't different because of a person's race, national origin, and so forth. But in fair housing, definitely the most common complaints are race-based, also national origin, and disability. Landlord-tenant, again, usually we're talking about things that pertain to security deposits, pets, and repairs.
Now, how can a person file a complaint with your department?
A person can file a complaint with our department by putting their complaint in writing. We have complaint forms that are available here in our department. If someone comes in, we have staff that can assist them with filling out their complaint, or they can actually call in, they can email, but eventually we will need the complaint to be reduced to writing so that we can have something tangible to go on in order to open up an investigative case file.
Now, those can be discrimination, landlord, tenant, any type of discrimination or issues with landlord they can file with your department?
Yes, and particularly, I'm glad you asked that question, because particularly with April being National Fair Housing Month, we really want to make sure that everyone understands that yes, they can come in and file fair housing complaints anytime, at any time. And they can also come in and file landlord-tenant complaints, and that can either be the landlord or the tenant. We don't just do one or the other, we do both. And also, even people who are trying to access city services, if they have limited English proficiency, they can also come into the Human Relations Department and file a complaint or concern for that as well, to request assistance.
Now that you talk about April being the Fair Housing Month, can you tell me then what is this annual fair and affordable housing summit that is in the month of April? And also, why in April?
Yes, the Fair and Affordable Housing Summit is April the 23rd this year. It's at 11:30 over at the Benton Convention Center. We have been holding and hosting the Fair and Affordable Housing Summit for 10 years now. So this is the 10th anniversary for the summit. And what the summit aims to do is to bring together housing industry professionals here in Winston-Salem and also statewide. We have professionals who come from Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro, and so forth, and they join us to learn about different trends and updates in the housing industry. And so we have government officials, nonprofit organizations represented, and really it's an information exchange. It's a way to educate one another about the different services that we provide, the different and new products that may be available for people who are seeking housing, whether they're renting or purchasing, and also to talk about the laws, different laws that have maybe been amended, or maybe new laws that are coming down the pipeline that people need to be aware of. So we really want to make sure that the public that we're serving, which really tends to overlap in the housing profession, we want to make sure that we're all as updated and as well informed as possible so that we can go back and share that information with our customers and our constituents.
Also, Wanda, we've informed this previously, but I'd like you to come back and talk about BIC, B-I-C. Where are we with this? And can you again explain just a little bit about what it's all about?
Sure, Miriam. BIC is Building Integrated Communities, and that is an initiative that we are working in partnership with UNC Chapel Hill on. And we have a lot of community stakeholders here locally, such as the Hispanic League, Hispanic Interaction, Second Harvest Food Bank, just a myriad of different programs and organizations, the school system here, who are working together to try to fill in some gaps for newcomers or newly arrived immigrants here in Winston-Salem. So we're trying to identify service needs, and those service needs are centered around housing, fair housing, centered around education, hunger, just different areas, transportation, just different things that we know people need immediately when they come into our community. Even healthcare is incorporated. So BIC, or Building Integrated Communities, is a way to sort of synthesize all of those different areas so that we can come up with some type of tangible clearinghouse for people. So when they come in and they have these questions that sometimes they may not clearly understand the answers to because of cultural differences or language barriers, then we have a way or a place for them to come and get the information that they need, and they can get it in a way that they understand.
Wanda, the projects are big. We have the Fair Housing Month that you all have this great event. You've got the BIC program going ahead. What else does the Human Relations Department want to say to our community about the projects and events that you all are holding?
Well, I would like to encourage the community to get involved in these programs that we're having, because these programs are for the community. And so for the April 23rd Fair and Affordable Housing Summit, for instance, even though it is not open to the general public, we do have pre-registration that's required, and we encourage housing industry professionals to pre-register and come and learn more about the housing industry. And again, those professionals could be with nonprofits, they could be with government, and so on and so forth. But we encourage anyone who works in the housing industry, even banks and bankers and lenders, to come and join us for the Fair and Affordable Housing Summit on April 23rd. April 30th is going to be the next Building Integrated Communities public meeting. So we had one in March. This is our follow-up meeting, which is really going to be a presentation of the information that UNC has researched and discovered about our immigrant population here in Winston-Salem. So the staff from UNC Chapel Hill will be seeking community input. They'll be seeking learning about the concerns and needs that we have here locally that will hopefully help them to help our BIT committee to discover and develop what we can do to help the assimilation and transition for newcomers from their original countries into the United States. So April 30th is a pretty big deal too. We encourage anyone, particularly those who are foreign born, to please come join Mayor Joins, join our staff and the UNC staff, and share what they know and what their opinions are about what we can do as a community to address some of the service gaps and needs of our immigrant population.
As you just heard, the Building Integrated Community Program is running smoothly, and our community is working hard to get this project done. In this segment of Did You Know, we have Stephanie Stimson with very important information.
Did you know that the city's code enforcement program is an important part of the city's overall strategy to put into practice programs to preserve neighborhoods and to help protect public health, safety, and the general welfare of Winston-Salem residents? Neighborhood conservation officers issue citations for violations of the city's ordinances regarding housing code violations, environmental nuisances such as trash, litter, high grass, rank vegetation, solid waste violations, and abandoned junked vehicles. To find out what is considered a violation, contact the Community and Business Development Department's Code Enforcement Division at 727-8000 or visit the department's website at www.cityofws.org.
Now, we're happy to have with us our new fire chief. This will be the first interview on Cable 13 with Chief Mayo. Here, we will hear him talk about his department and the big efforts they are doing on recruitment. Let's meet Chief Mayo. Chief Mayo, how long have you been in this position, and how long have you been a firefighter, and where?
So my first day in Winston-Salem was January 12th, so I've been on the job here a couple of months, and I started my fire service career as a volunteer in my hometown of Plymouth, which is in the northeastern part of the state. I volunteered with Carborough Fire Department, which is butts right up against Chapel Hill on Chapel Hill's west side while I was a student at the University of North Carolina. And then I began an 11-year career with the Raleigh Fire Department. And after 11 years in Raleigh, I returned to what was then Carborough Fire Rescue. They had changed their name and become a fully career department, and I went there as the deputy fire chief. And after 3.5 years in Carborough, I went to Rocky Mount as the fire chief, and I was the fire chief there for 4.5 years before coming to Winston-Salem.
With all of this experience, what type of calls are those that the fire department gets?
So that's an interesting question. What I tell people is when you call 911 and your problem does not fit neatly into a law enforcement category, you know, somebody hasn't broken into your house, they haven't sideswiped your car, you know, there's not a domestic dispute, and there are bunches of law enforcement type calls. They run way more calls than we do, but when it doesn't fit neatly into that, the telecommunicators are trained to send the nearest available engine company. So we run the gamut of calls, everything from children who have their heads stuck in a stair rail. We go to ruptured water heaters, we go to down power lines. But the bulk of our calls, we answer about 27,000 calls a year. The bulk of those calls, in the 75 to 80% range, are medical in nature. So we answer medical calls as the first response agency in tandem with Forsyth EMS. And then, so the balance of those 20 to 25% of our annual call volume that are not medical calls, they fall into that other class where we run the down power lines, the ruptured water heaters, building fires, dumpster fires, trash fires, grass fires, all sorts of just general things that the citizens of Winston-Salem get themselves into, and they need some assistance. We send the fire department out to help them through whatever that crisis is.
Chief, I see all of this going on in the background. What is this all about?
So what you see going on behind me is firefighter survival training. We have a fire academy going on right now. We train our own recruits through an internal fire academy run by our instructors predominantly. And so what you see going on here is bailout training. So if they were to get in a situation in a building on fire where they got cut off by fire, fire conditions changed unexpectedly, they got separated from a hose line, lost water. I mean, there are all sorts of things that could happen. We try to prevent those things from happening, but the business we're in is very unpredictable. So what these recruits are learning today is how to do self-rescue. So what you see them doing is bailing out of windows. They're doing breaching and breaking practice. They're doing ladder slides so that in the event that they do have to self-rescue, the time that it happens will not be the first time that they have learned and practiced those techniques.
Now, one of the things that I've seen and I've read about, it's about the fire alarm program. What is that all about?
So I think what you're referring to is the smoke alarm program,
Yes.
where we give out free smoke alarms to those who meet a certain qualification threshold. And typically these are elderly, low income, and they don't live in rental housing, so they have to be owner occupied. And the reason we do that is because the North Carolina State Fire Code requires landlords to place smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms when appropriate in all tenant occupied housing. So this is not a service that the fire department and the city provides to subsidize the landlord-tenant relationship, but this is to help those who may not otherwise be able to afford or install a smoke alarm on their own in owner-occupied housing.
There's also another program or division that works with fire prevention. How does that help our community? How does the community get involved in this?
So you're referring to our Fire Prevention Bureau, and that's a multi-pronged division of the fire department, and they do several important things. One is they do public fire education and risk reduction. So they do smoke alarm education, they do fire prevention education in our schools, they handle recruiting for us, they do all sorts of just community-wide risk reduction programs for various age groups in different segments of our community. Another thing that the Fire Prevention Bureau does that's very important is they do fire code enforcement and plans review. So anytime somebody's building a commercial occupancy in the city limits of Winston-Salem, those plans have to go through a review process. It's checked for electrical, plumbing, mechanical, but it also goes through a fire plans review process where our plans reviewers ensure that there is adequate fire department access and that fire hydrants are located properly, and that if the building meets the threshold to require fire sprinkler system or standpipe systems, that those systems are required in the building. So it goes through that review process. The Fire Prevention Bureau also enforces the state fire code. So at least every 3 years, and in a lot of cases annually, the fire code requires commercial occupancies, and I'm talking about everything from common areas in a multifamily housing like an apartment complex to the largest buildings in downtown Winston-Salem. they have to be inspected to make sure they are in compliance with the fire code, that exit ways are open and unlocked when required, that travel corridors are not blocked, that there's no combustible storage in travel corridors, to make sure fire alarm systems and sprinkler systems are operating as they should, that they've been checked by people who are certified to check those systems. So that's something very important that the Fire Prevention Bureau does. And a third thing that comes to mind that they do is that they are the division of the fire department that does cause and determination, cause and origin determination. So when we have a fire, as the fire chief, I am charged by state law to make sure that that fire is investigated to determine its cause and origin, and the Fire Prevention Bureau handles that for us. They have inspectors. We have an accelerant detecting dog that goes out for us and conducts the cause and origin determination when we have fires in the community.
Now, Chief, is there any type of ordinance that's related to the fire department that our community should be aware of?
I expect the ordinance that we answer the most calls related to is illegal burning. So inside the city limits of Winston-Salem, and this is true in most municipalities, you cannot do open burning that is not related to heating or cooking. So burning of leaves, burning of trash in a fire barrel, burning construction debris, that is not permitted inside the city limits of Winston-Salem. And we answer a fair number of calls related to violations of that ordinance each year.
Chief, we're also talking about recruitment for the fire department. That's been going on around the city, just asking, how do we do this? How can somebody interested be part of this department?
So, great question. A lot of people, especially inside municipalities, are not exposed very much to the fire service. You know, as I told you, I came into the fire service through the volunteer fire service. You know, I came into the career fire service through the volunteer fire service. And we get about 70% of our applicants from the volunteer fire service. They're feeding us applicants all the time. But for folks who cannot or are not in a position to get exposed that way, we have several mechanisms. And the number one thing is, if people are interested, because you and I were having a conversation earlier, you know, I spoke to a group of young folks last week, and you know, we were talking about a career in the fire service and nobody had any questions. But now I find out from you, you know, that there were a number of questions about people who were interested in a career in the fire service. So if you're interested, visit our website. We have, the city has Facebook and Twitter pages where you can keep up with what's going on citywide, but also specific to the fire department. And we'll give out a telephone number, 336-779-7900. I'm sorry, 336-773-7900. 336-773-7900. And people can call, inquire, and we have recruiters, and we can put people who are interested in touch with recruiters. You know, we have a ride-along program, and all of our fire stations are open to the public, you know, during semi-normal business hours, you know, from about 7 in the morning until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Now, people are always there. Our facilities are staffed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We don't take time off for Christmas, vacation, soccer practice, basketball games. We're always staffed. But during, like I say, those, you know, fairly normal business hours, and our facilities are strategically located all over the city, people can just come in and talk to the on-duty crew, you know, and ask them about a career in the fire service, and ask them what it's like, and talk to the guys and girls who are working, and you know, talk to them about what they did to go down the path toward a career in the fire service.
Now, we're talking about all the recruitment, how they can do it, but I also understand there's a population in our community, the Hispanic population, that continues to grow. What is the fire department doing to be able to recruit bilingual individuals to be able to help that growing population?
So very much like a lot of the world, we have become slaves to social media. So the city's marketing and communications department, they help us market the fire department when we are hiring to various segments of the population through the use of social media, particularly Facebook and Twitter. We have a mechanism by which we can use computer algorithms and target our message to various subgroups of our city, based on demographic, based on age, based on gender. We can target our message to different groups like that. We also have found that we've had a fair amount of success using radio, and we are advertising on the various radio stations that allow us to reach into a specific demographic.
Now, Chief, is there anything else you would like our community to know about the fire department?
One thing that I thought of while we were talking about some other questions was how do people get involved in the fire service? If they're interested in a fire service career. And I neglected to mention that Walkertown High School has a fire certification program for high school students. So if you get into that program as a freshman in high school, by the time you graduate, and you have to turn 18 to get the certification, but students who are interested in that and can get to Walkertown High School, and I'm not an expert on the school system, so I can't give advice on how to do that, but when you're not in where you're not located to where you would go to Walkertown High School ordinarily. But they do have that program, and I would encourage our young folks who are thinking about a fire service career to investigate that program. And then the other thing I would just say is, the fire service it's just a great career. We have very low turnover. Not many of our employees would tell you that they don't absolutely love coming to work. And it's very, very rewarding to have an opportunity to know that every day you come to work, when you get off at the end of your shift, you will have almost always done something positive for somebody that you probably had never seen before, and it's very unlikely that you will ever see them again. When we talk about helping out our fellow man, I don't know of any occupation where you're guaranteed the opportunity to do that almost every day that you come to work. We have a rank structure, so this is a career where you have structure in the workplace. There are lots of promotional opportunities. There is support for education, both in scheduling and with tuition assistance while you're working. So I would encourage folks who have never given it a second thought to come into the fire service for a career to check us out.
It was a real pleasure getting to know Chief Mayo and the pride he takes when he talks about his department. If you are interested in learning more about the department, or you're interested in a firefighter career, please don't hesitate in calling 723-7900. Now, tax season has come and gone. We still wanted to air this segment so our community could learn about the VITA program, what it is, and how you can take advantage of it. Mr. Sebastian Prandoni is a volunteer with the VITA program and brings us all this information. I know you do volunteer work. For what organization is it?
I do volunteer work for an organization called VITA, or Forsyth Free Tax.
Now, what is VITA all about? What is it that they offer?
VITA is an organization that works with individuals and families in Forsyth County, and they offer free of charge service of completing tax returns for individuals depending their income. With the help of volunteers certified by the IRS, they process electronically the federal and state returns for each individual using their specialized programs.
Now, do you have to have some sort of degree in accounting to be able to be a volunteer for VITA? Or is there some sort of training that you get to be that volunteer?
You don't need a degree to become a volunteer here. Forsyth Free Tax or VITA offers courses for its volunteers free of charge to cover the legal aspect as well as the software aspect.
Now, who can take advantage of the VITA program? And what is it that they do in relation with that individual?
Okay, so individuals that make less than $53,000 per year can come to one of our locations, one of our 8 locations, and have their returns done for them. And individuals who earn below $60,000 per year can come in to one of our 8 locations, use our computer and our software, and we'll be there to answer any questions which they may have, but we will not complete them for the returns for them.
Let's say you have an individual that does not have a Social Security number, but has something that is called an ITIN number. Can that person come and take advantage of the VITA program?
Yes, an ITIN is sufficient to come and take advantage.
How many locations does the VITA program have so people could take advantage of this program?
They have 8 locations in Forsyth County, working from Monday through Saturday. Individuals can go to forsythfreetax.org to get specific addresses as well as hours of operation.
Do I need an appointment, or can I just come on in and that's it?
Well, only in 2 locations you need an appointment, in the Prosperity Center on Liberty Street and the mobile unit, or the Point, which is an effort by United Way and their partners to offer the service on a bus. It has 4 computers and with fixed locations and fixed dates, and people can sign up and have their tax refunds done there.
That's great. Now, what type of documents would I need to be able to come and have you guys help me out?
You would need photo identification, Social Security or ITIN for yourself and dependents. You would need tax documents, W-2, 1099, whichever it may be. And if you wish to have if you get a refund and you would like to have a direct deposit, you need to bring in your bank account number and your routing number.
Now, let's see, how do I get that refund? Can I get it in a check? Do I get it direct deposit? How does that come to me?
You have an option. You can get it through check by mail. It'll take about 3 to 6 weeks to get there. By direct deposit, which will take 1 to 3 weeks, or if you have a prepaid debit card and you bring that card number, we can have the funds transferred directly to your account.
Now, if I am going to have to pay the government, do I have to pay that same day that I went to do the taxes with you all, or can I pay it later on?
You can pay it later on. Before the April 15th, there will not be any penalties. Afterwards, there might be if you owe the government some penalties based on interest. And if you need, we can file an extension at the ESR location.
Let's say that for some sort of reason, I wasn't able to do my taxes by April 15th. Is there any sort of extension? Do you all give the service, or do I have to go somewhere else to get the services?
At ESR, we can help individuals to file an extension if they miss the April 15th deadline.
Is there a number our public can call to get all this information if they can't get on the web?
Yes, the number is 722, area code 336, 722-9400, extension 165.
Is there anything else you would like to let our public know in relation with the VITA program?
Yes, April 15th is the deadline. The sooner you get involved and find out, the better chance we have to help you. So come on to one of our locations.
Today, as always, 4 important topics. 1, fair housing and building integrated communities. 2, the Did You Know segment from the Community and Business Development Department. 3, you have met our new fire chief and his talk about recruitment. And last but not least, the VITA program. We hope this information will help you understand better our community and also take advantage and participate in all these programs. Thank you for watching the spring edition of Your Community on WSTV Cable 13. This is your host, Miriam Hernandez. Until next time with our summer edition.